I was standing in our marble kitchen, pregnant and holding our baby girl, when my billionaire husband's hand connected with my face. The sound echoed through our mansion. But he didn't know my brother was watching through the baby monitor. What happened next destroyed everything he'd built. Before I tell you how one slap cost a billionaire everything, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. This story gets darker before it gets better, and you won't believe how it ends. Drop a comment if you've ever had to choose between love and self-respect. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Nina Holland, and 5 years ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale. I grew up in a regular middle-class neighborhood in Philadelphia. My mama was a school teacher, my daddy worked for the postal service, and my little brother Terrell and I shared a bathroom that was always too small. We weren't rich, but we had love. We had each other. And honestly, that was enough. I went to college, got my degree in social work, and spent my 20s working for a nonprofit that helped families find affordable housing. The pay was terrible, but the work mattered. I was helping people, making a real difference. I felt good about my life, you know? I had purpose. Then one night in the spring of 2014, everything changed. My organization was hosting this big charity gala, trying to raise money for a new community center. I was there in a dress I'd borrowed from my roommate, feeling completely out of place among all these wealthy people in their designer clothes and expensive jewelry. And that's when I met Christopher Blake. He was tall, confident, impossibly handsome in his tailored suit. He came up to me at the bar and started asking questions about our work. Not the polite, surface-level questions rich people usually ask before they write a check and forget about you. Real questions. He seemed genuinely interested. We talked for 3 hours straight. By the end of the night, he'd donated $100,000 to our organization and asked for my number. I should have known then that something was off. Nobody's that perfect, right? But I was 27, flattered, and honestly a little dazzled by the attention. Christopher was 14 years older than me, a self-made billionaire who'd built his fortune in real estate development. He told me he'd come from nothing, worked his way up, and now he wanted to give back. He made me feel seen, special, like I was the only woman in the world. We started dating, and it was intense from the beginning. He'd send cars to pick me up from work, take me to restaurants where the waiters knew his name, weekend trips to Paris, to the Maldives, to places I'd only seen in magazines. My friends were excited for me at first. My family was cautious, my brother Terrell especially. He worked as a journalist, and he had this way of seeing through people. He kept asking me if I really knew Christopher, if I'd met his family, if anything seemed strange about how fast everything was moving. But I was in love. Or at least, I thought I was. Looking back now, I think I was in love with the idea of being saved, of being chosen, of not having to struggle anymore. And that's a dangerous thing, y'all. That's how they get you. We got married a year after we met. It was a huge wedding, 300 guests, covered in all the society pages. My mama cried the whole time, and I thought it was because she was happy. Years later, she told me she'd had a bad feeling in her gut that day, but didn't want to ruin it for me. Mothers always know, don't they? The first year of marriage was okay. Christopher was demanding, sure. He liked things a certain way. He got upset if dinner wasn't ready when he got home, if the house wasn't perfectly clean, if I wore something he didn't approve of. But he never yelled. He'd just get this cold, disappointed look on his face that made me feel like I'd failed him somehow. I started changing little things about myself to keep him happy. Stopped seeing certain friends he didn't like, quit my job when he said it was embarrassing for his wife to work, started dressing how he wanted, talking how he wanted, becoming who he wanted. Then I got pregnant with Ruby, and everything shifted. Christopher was thrilled about having a child, but he was also more controlling than ever. He hired a nutritionist to monitor what I ate, wouldn't let me drive myself to doctor's appointments, started checking my phone, my emails, saying it was because he worried about me. He made me feel like I couldn't take care of myself, like I needed him for everything. And slowly, piece by piece, I lost myself. Ruby was born in January of 2018, and she was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, with my nose and her daddy's eyes. For a few months, being her mama was enough to distract me from how unhappy I'd become. But Christopher started traveling more for business, and when he was home, he was different. Angry, impatient. If Ruby cried too much, he'd snap at me. If the house was messy, he'd lecture me about how hard he worked while I stayed home doing nothing. Nothing. As if raising a baby wasn't work. As if I hadn't given up my career, my independence, my whole identity to be his wife. The first time he pushed me was when Ruby was 6 months old. I'd asked him to hold her while I finished cooking dinner, and he said he was busy. I pushed back a little, said I needed help, and he just shoved me aside to get past me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to scare me. He apologized immediately, said he was stressed about a deal, promised it would never happen again. It happened again, and again. A grab here, a shove there, always followed by apologies and excuses. I started making excuses too. To myself, to Terrell when he asked why I had a bruise on my arm. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that he was under a lot of pressure, that I needed to try harder to be a better wife. By the time I got pregnant with our second baby in early 2019, I was walking on eggshells every single day. Terrell could see it. He'd come over to visit, and I could tell he was watching Christopher, watching me, trying to figure out what was wrong. One day when Christopher was out of town, Terrell sat me down and asked me straight out if I was safe. I lied to his face, told him everything was fine, but he didn't believe me. He installed a baby monitor in Ruby's room a few weeks later, said it was a gift so I could check on her from my phone. What I didn't know was that Terrell had access to that camera too. He'd check in on us during his lunch breaks at work, just to make sure we were okay. He was watching over me even when I wouldn't let him help me. It was a Tuesday in July when everything fell apart. Just a regular Tuesday afternoon, hot and humid, the kind of day where the city smells like garbage and regret. I was 4 months pregnant, tired, my feet were swollen, and Ruby had been fussy all day because she was teething. I was trying to cook dinner with her on my hip because she wouldn't stop crying when I put her down. Christopher came home early. I heard the door slam, and my stomach dropped. He stormed into the kitchen, his face red, his tie loosened, and I could tell immediately that something had gone wrong. Some business deal had fallen through. He started yelling about his day, about his incompetent partners, about everything that was wrong with his life. And then he turned on me. He asked where his dry cleaning was. I'd forgotten to pick it up, with everything else going on that day. With Ruby crying and my body aching and the exhaustion that comes with growing another human being, I'd forgotten to pick up his damn dry cleaning, and he lost it. He started screaming about how useless I was, how I had one job, how I couldn't even manage the simple task of running a household. Ruby was crying louder now, scared by her father's voice. I was trying to calm her, trying to calm him, but nothing was working. He told me to put her down. I refused. I knew if I put her down, she'd cry harder, and that would make him angrier. That's when he hit me. His hand came across my face so fast I didn't see it coming. The sound was like a firecracker going off. Ruby screamed. My cheek burned. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I just stood there holding my baby, my hand on my pregnant belly, and I looked at this man I'd married. This man I'd given up everything for, and I didn't recognize him. He started apologizing immediately, saying he didn't mean to, that I'd provoked him, that if I'd just listened this wouldn't have happened. The same script every abuser uses. But something in me broke in that moment. Not enough to make me leave right then, but enough to crack the foundation of all the lies I'd been telling myself. What I didn't know was that Terrell had been watching. He'd logged into the baby monitor during his lunch break, just checking in like he always did. And he saw everything. He watched his brother-in-law hit his sister. He recorded it on his phone, and he made a decision. My phone rang 20 minutes later while I was in the bathroom, holding a cold washcloth to my face and trying not to sob loud enough for Christopher to hear. It was Terrell. His voice was shaking with rage. He told me he'd seen what happened. I tried to deny it at first, tried to make excuses, but he wouldn't let me. He told me he was coming to get me and Ruby, tonight. I panicked. I begged him not to come, not to make this a bigger deal than it was. And even as I said those words, I heard how crazy they sounded. My husband had just hit me while I was pregnant and holding our baby. How was that not a big deal? But I was scared. Scared of what Christopher would do if I tried to leave. Scared of losing my children. Scared of being alone. Fear makes you think leaving is more dangerous than staying. That's the trap. Terrell came anyway. He showed up at our penthouse that evening, and the confrontation between him and Christopher was the ugliest thing I'd ever witnessed. Christopher threatened him, said he'd destroy his career, sue him for harassment, make sure he never worked in journalism again. Christopher's whole face changed when he was challenged. The mask came completely off. He talked about all the powerful people he knew, all the lawyers he could afford, all the ways he could make our lives hell. And Terrell just stood there and said, "Do it. I dare you." Then he turned to me and said I had a choice. I could stay with a man who would keep hurting me, keep controlling me, keep taking pieces of me until there was nothing left. Or I could leave. He said Ruby and I could stay with him for as long as we needed, that I didn't have to figure everything out tonight. I just had to take the first step. I didn't leave that night. I was too afraid. But something shifted. Christopher could feel it. Over the next few days, he tried everything. He bought me a new car, jewelry, promised we'd go to counseling, told me how much he loved me. But then he'd turn around and say it was my fault he got so angry, that I needed to work on communicating better, that if I just tried harder, he wouldn't lose his temper. Terrell, meanwhile, was doing what he does best: investigating. He started digging into Christopher's business empire, and what he found made my blood run cold. Christopher's real estate development company had built its fortune on exploiting people. Low-income neighborhoods pushed out through shady deals, buildings with code violations that he'd bribed inspectors to ignore, workers injured on his construction sites who were paid to keep quiet, and worst of all, he found another woman. An ex-girlfriend from before me who Christopher had abused so badly she'd ended up in the hospital. He'd paid her off, made her sign paperwork saying she'd never tell anyone what happened. I wasn't the first. I probably wouldn't be the last. Terrell wrote an article, a long, detailed investigative piece for a major publication. He titled it, "The Cost of Empire: How Real Estate Mogul." Christopher Blake built his fortune on broken backs and broken lives. He interviewed former employees, business partners who'd been cheated, families displaced by his developments. And he included my story. He asked my permission first and I said yes, because I realized that staying silent was protecting him, not me. Staying silent meant other women might end up in my position, or worse. The day before the article was set to publish, I packed a bag for Ruby and me. I left while Christopher was at work. I took only what we absolutely needed. I filed for divorce and got a temporary restraining order. And then I waited. The article went live on a Thursday morning. By noon, it had been shared thousands of times. By evening, it was national news. Video evidence of him hitting me, testimony from other victims, financial documents showing years of corruption and fraud. Christopher's entire world collapsed in less than 24 hours. His board of directors held an emergency meeting and forced him to step down. Criminal investigations were launched. Business partners sued. Assets were frozen. Everything he'd built, everything he'd valued more than his own family, was gone. I gave birth to my son Julian 3 months later, a healthy, beautiful baby boy who will never see his father raise a hand to his mother. The divorce was finalized within the year. I got full custody of both children and a settlement that means they'll never want for anything. But more than that, I got my life back. Christopher was eventually convicted of fraud and bribery. He's serving time now in a federal prison. His empire is gone. His reputation destroyed. Some people might say that's justice. I just say it's consequences. As for me, I took the settlement money and started a foundation for women escaping domestic violence. We provide housing, legal support, job training, therapy, everything I wish I'd had when I needed it. I speak at events now, share my story, help other women see the warning signs I ignored. Ruby is 4 years old now. She doesn't remember that day in the kitchen, thank God. Julian is 2. They're both happy, healthy, loved. Terrell won awards for his journalism, but more than that, his article sparked real change. New laws were passed about domestic violence reporting. Other journalists started investigating similar cases. Powerful men who thought they were untouchable suddenly weren't. People ask me sometimes if I regret marrying Christopher. Honestly, I don't know how to answer that. I regret the pain, the lost years, the pieces of myself I had to rebuild. But I got Ruby and Julian out of that marriage, and I learned something crucial. Your worth isn't determined by who loves you or how much money they have. It's determined by how you love yourself, by whether you're willing to accept treatment that breaks you down or demand treatment that builds you up. I was lucky. I had a brother who refused to look away, who risked everything to save me. Not every woman has that. Not every woman gets out. The statistics are horrifying. On average, a woman will leave an abusive relationship 7 times before she leaves for good. And the most dangerous time is right after she leaves, when her abuser realizes he's losing control. If you're watching this and something in my story sounds familiar, please listen to me. It doesn't matter how much money he has. It doesn't matter how many times he apologizes. It doesn't matter how afraid you are. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. And there are people who will help you. I've put resources in the description: hotlines, shelters, legal aid. Please use them. And to everyone else watching, pay attention to the women in your life. Ask the hard questions. Believe them when they tell you something's wrong. Be the Terrell for someone who needs you. Don't look away just because it's uncomfortable or none of your business. It is your business. We're all responsible for each other. Christopher Blake thought he was untouchable, thought his money and power put him above consequences. But one moment of violence, witnessed by someone who cared enough to act, brought everything crashing down. Your silence protects abusers. Your voice saves lives. If my story touched you, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your share could save a life. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about survival and strength. And listen, if you're going through something similar, I've put resources in the description below. Hotlines, shelters, legal help. You deserve better. Drop a heart emoji in the comments if you believe survivors. Drop a strength emoji if you've overcome your own battles. Remember, leaving is hard, but staying can cost you everything. You are stronger than you know. I'll see you in the next video. Stay strong.